In today's fast-paced world, where medical interventions and pharmaceutical solutions dominate our approach to health and wellness, Dr. Joe Dispenza offers a refreshingly different perspective in his groundbreaking book, You Are the Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter. This comprehensive work delves into the extraordinary power of the mind to heal the body, challenging conventional wisdom about the limitations of human potential. Welcome to Unbound Library. We present an engaging summary of Dr. Joe Dispenza's transformative book, You Are the Placebo. Discover the powerful insights that can help reshape your understanding of the mind-body connection and your ability to heal. This summary is intended solely for informational purposes and should not be considered a substitute for the original work. We encourage our audience and viewers to read the full book written by Dr. Joe Dispenza for a comprehensive understanding of its concepts and principles. Our aim is to provide valuable insights while respecting the original author's work. If you find this summary helpful, please like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for updates. Share this summary with someone who needs it the most. As someone who's thoroughly studied this remarkable book, I'm excited to share its profound insights with you. Dr. Dispenza combines cutting-edge neuroscience, quantum physics, and documented case studies to demonstrate how our thoughts can literally transform our biology. The concept is both simple and revolutionary. You can change your health outcomes by changing your beliefs. Throughout this summary, I'll guide you through Dr. Dispenza's key teachings, remarkable stories of healing, and practical techniques that can help you harness your own innate healing abilities. We'll explore how individuals have overcome devastating health conditions, not through external treatments, but through the power of their own minds. As Dr. Dispenza eloquently puts it, your thoughts are incredibly powerful. Choose yours wisely. Let's embark on this journey of discovery together, exploring how we can become our own placebos and create meaningful, lasting change in our lives. Chapter 1. Is it possible? Dr. Joe Dispenza opens You Are the Placebo with a compelling question that challenges our fundamental understanding of healing. Is it possible to heal by thought alone? Through this chapter, he introduces readers to the extraordinary concept that our minds possess remarkable capabilities to influence our physical reality. Dispenza shares his personal journey, recounting a life-altering accident where he was hit by an SUV during a triathlon. With 6 broken vertebrae, doctors recommended a surgical procedure that would implant Harrington rods along his spine. This conventional approach, they insisted, was his only hope for walking again. However, Dispenza made a decision that would change the course of his life. He left the hospital against medical advice to pursue healing through the power of his mind. I reasoned that if thoughts could make us sick, which my training and research as a chiropractor had shown me was true, then perhaps our thoughts could make us well, Dispenza explains. This pivotal moment set him on a path to explore the intersection between thought and physical healing. For 9 weeks, Dispenza dedicated his entire being to a self-created healing regimen. He visualized each vertebra healing perfectly, spending 2 to 3 hours daily reconstructing his spine in his mind. He describes this intense mental work. I put all my attention on this healing process. I surrendered to a greater mind that had organized all the functions of my body from the beginning. The result was nothing short of miraculous. Within 10 weeks, Dispenza was walking again, and within 3 months, he had returned to training and seeing patients. His healing journey, which defied medical expectations, became his first personal evidence that the mind can indeed heal the body. This personal experience forms the foundation for his exploration of what he calls the placebo effect. Dispenza clarifies that the placebo effect isn't just about sugar pills or fake treatments. It's about the genuine physiological changes that occur when we believe something will help us. As he explains, the placebo effect is an example of how powerful our thoughts can be in creating our experience of reality. When we believe something will work, it often does, not because of the treatment itself, but because of our belief in it. Dispenza introduces readers to several thought-provoking cases throughout history, including a man named Wright, who experienced temporary remission from advanced cancer after believing he had received a miraculous new drug, only to relapse when newspaper reports questioned the drug's efficacy. Wright's condition improved again when his doctor deliberately deceived him with injections of plain water, convincing him it was an improved version of the drug. These stories lead to a profound question that sets the stage for the rest of the book. If you can experience the same biological, neurological, and chemical effects from a placebo as you can from the actual substance, without the substance, then perhaps your body's ability to heal by thought alone is not so far-fetched after all. Dr. Dispenza challenges readers to consider that if the mind can produce healing effects when we believe in an external intervention, perhaps we can deliberately harness that same power directly, becoming our own placebos. He suggests, what if we could teach people to change their internal state without depending on some external remedy? What if they could embrace the concept that their own thoughts and emotions could create beneficial physical changes? This chapter establishes the core premise of the book, that we have far more control over our health and our biology than we've been led to believe. By understanding and applying the principles behind the placebo effect, we can potentially activate our own internal pharmacy and healing mechanisms. As Dispenza puts it, the of consciousness to influence our physical reality. Chapter 3. The Placebo Effect in the Brain. In this illuminating chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza takes readers on a journey through the neurological underpinnings of the placebo effect, explaining in accessible terms how our thoughts and beliefs can create measurable changes in brain function and chemistry. Dispenza begins by addressing a fundamental question. When we experience healing from a placebo, what's actually happening in our brains? He explains that modern neuroscience has revolutionized our understanding of this phenomenon through advanced brain imaging techniques like fMRI, PET scans, and SPECT imaging. What these technologies have revealed is nothing short of remarkable, Dispenza writes. When a person receives a placebo and believes it will help them, their brain activity changes in ways that are virtually indistinguishable from changes produced by actual medications. The chapter delves into several key findings about placebo effects in neurological conditions. For Parkinson's disease patients, placebos can trigger the brain to produce dopamine, the very neurotransmitter that Parkinson's medications aim to increase. Dispenza cites studies showing that placebo treatments activated the same brain regions and produced similar amounts of dopamine as actual Parkinson's drugs. The patient's brains, he notes, manufactured the exact chemical they needed, simply because they believed they were receiving an effective treatment. In depression studies, placebo treatments have been shown to alter activity in regions like the prefrontal cortex and limbic system, the same areas targeted by antidepressant medications. Dispenza emphasizes the remarkable finding that approximately 75% of the effectiveness of antidepressants can be attributed to the placebo effect, suggesting that belief plays an enormous role in mood regulation. For pain management, Dispenza explains how placebos stimulate the brain's natural painkiller system. When we expect pain relief, our brains release endorphins, essentially our internal opioids, that bind to the same receptors as drugs like morphine. He writes, he cites fascinating studies where placebo effects were blocked by naloxone, a drug that inhibits opioid receptors, proving that actual biochemical processes underlie the experience. Dispenza introduces readers to the concept of expectancy theory, explaining how our anticipation of outcomes shapes our neurological responses. Your brain doesn't distinguish between what's happening in your external world and what you're expecting to happen, he explains. From a neurological perspective, your thoughts about reality and reality itself create similar patterns of brain activity. A particularly intriguing section covers the relationship between consciousness and brain function. Dispenza challenges the purely materialist view that consciousness is merely a product of the brain, suggesting instead that consciousness can direct and shape neural activity. He explains how focused attention and intention can strengthen neural networks through what neuroscientists call self-directed neuroplasticity. Every time you have a thought, Dispenza writes, you make a chemical. If you have happy thoughts, you make happy chemicals. If you have unhappy thoughts, you make unhappy chemicals. This simple but profound perspective helps readers understand how persistent thought patterns can create lasting changes in brain function. Dispenza introduces readers to the innovative work of Dr. Candace Pert, who discovered that neuropeptides, the chemical messengers of emotion, have receptors not just in the brain, but throughout the body. This discovery, Dispenza notes, helped us understand that the mind isn't just in the brain. It's distributed throughout the entire body. Every cell has the capacity to think in a sense, responding to our emotional states. The chapter concludes with a profound insight. If simply believing in an external intervention can create these remarkable changes in brain function, we should be able to produce similar effects through direct conscious intention. The placebo effect demonstrates that the hardware of the brain can be changed by the software of our thoughts, Dispenza writes. When we truly understand this, we realize that we don't need the pill, the procedure, or the external substance. We can become our own placebos. Dr. Dispenza leaves readers with an empowering message. Your brain is a magnificent organ that's constantly responding to your thoughts, perceptions, and beliefs. By understanding how the placebo effect works in your brain, you gain access to one of the most powerful healing tools available, your own consciousness. Chapter 4. How Thoughts Change Your Brain and Body. In this profound chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza explores the intricate relationship between our thoughts and our physical biology, demonstrating how mental activity translates into measurable changes in brain structure, gene expression, and overall health. Dispenza begins by challenging the conventional understanding of the relationship between mind and body. For too long, Western medicine has operated on the assumption that the mind and body are separate entities, he writes. But neuroscience is now showing us that not only are they connected, they are fundamentally inseparable aspects of the same system. The chapter introduces readers to the concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. Your brain is not static, Dispenza explains. It's constantly being shaped by your experiences, perceptions, and most importantly, your thoughts. He describes research showing that mental practices like meditation, visualization, and focused attention can physically alter the brain's structure and function. One of the most fascinating sections discusses how thoughts influence gene expression through the emerging field of epigenetics. We used to believe that our genes determined our destiny, Dispenza notes. But we now understand that while you can't change your genetic code, you can change how your genes express themselves. He explains that signals from our environment, including our internal environment of thoughts and emotions, can activate or deactivate certain genes. Through your thoughts, you are constantly signaling your genes to create proteins that will affect your physical state, Dispenza writes. He cites groundbreaking research showing that stress hormones can switch on genes associated with inflammation and disease, while stress-reducing practices can activate genes associated with healing and longevity. The chapter delves into the body's response to different emotional states, particularly distinguishing between survival emotions, fear, anger, anxiety, and elevated emotions, gratitude, joy, compassion. When you live in constant stress, Dispenza explains, your body diverts resources away from growth, repair, and immunity to deal with the perceived threat. Your thoughts of worry, quite literally, become anxiety in your body. In contrast, Dispenza describes how elevated emotional states create a cascade of beneficial hormones and neurotransmitters that support healing. When you cultivate feelings of gratitude, your brain releases dopamine and serotonin, your heart rhythm becomes more coherent, and your immune system strengthens, he writes. These aren't just pleasant sensations, they're signaling molecules that communicate with every cell in your body. Dispenza introduces readers to the concept of state-dependent memory, explaining that our bodies store memories not just in our brains, but in our entire physiology. Your body doesn't know the difference between an actual experience that creates an emotion and an emotion that you create by thought alone, he explains. The body believes what the mind tells it. This understanding forms the foundation for his approach to transformation, changing our internal state through conscious thought and emotional regulation. The chapter includes compelling examples of how these principles work in real life. Dispenza describes workshop participants who, through focused meditation practices, were able to decrease inflammatory markers, normalize blood pressure, and even change genetic expression within just 4 days. These weren't subtle changes, he emphasizes. They were measurable, significant changes that conventional medicine would typically attribute to medication, not thought alone. Particularly powerful is Dispenza's explanation of how we can become addicted to certain emotional states. When you repeatedly experience a particular emotion, your body becomes conditioned to that chemical state, he writes. If you've lived in stress for years, your cells actually develop receptors that hunger for stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your body literally becomes addicted to the chemistry of your thoughts. Breaking these emotional addictions, Dispenza explains, requires a period of discomfort as the body adjusts to a new chemical balance. When you make a decision to change your thoughts and emotions, expect resistance from your body, he advises. That's just your cells wanting their usual chemical fix. But if you persist in maintaining elevated emotions, your body will eventually adapt to and begin to crave this new state of being. The chapter concludes with a powerful message about personal responsibility for our internal states. Every thought you think is a tangible force that affects your physical reality, Dispenza writes. You can't think grateful thoughts and feel angry at the same time. You can't think loving thoughts and feel anxious simultaneously. By consciously choosing your thoughts, you choose your biology. Dr. Dispenza leaves readers with a profound insight. You are not doomed by your genes, and you are not a victim of your environment. The moment you change your mind, you change your brain chemistry. And when you change your brain chemistry, you change your life. In Chapter 5, Dr. Joe Dispenza explores the fascinating concept of suggestibility, our susceptibility to accepting and acting on ideas presented to us, and how it plays a crucial role in both placebo effects and personal transformation. Dispenza begins by explaining that suggestibility is not a weakness, but a natural human characteristic that varies among individuals. Everyone is suggestible to some degree, he writes. This capacity allows us to learn, adapt, and be influenced by new information. Without suggestibility, we would be unable to change our beliefs or integrate new understanding. The chapter introduces readers to different types of suggestibility and how they operate in our daily lives. Direct suggestibility occurs when we consciously accept an idea presented by an authority figure. Dispenza explains how the white coat of a doctor, the credentials of an expert, or the confidence of a leader can enhance our receptivity to their suggestions. When a trusted physician tells you a treatment will work, he notes, your belief in their authority actually increases the likelihood of a positive outcome. Indirect suggestibility works through subtle cues and implications rather than direct statements. Dispenza describes how environmental factors, cultural messaging, and implied outcomes can shape our expectations without our conscious awareness. You might never have been explicitly told that a certain condition is incurable, he explains. But after seeing countless depictions of people suffering from it, your subconscious mind adopts this belief. A particularly enlightening section explores the relationship between suggestibility and brainwave states. Dispenza explains that our normal waking consciousness, beta brainwaves, is associated with analytical thinking and is less receptive to suggestion. However, when we enter more relaxed states characterized by alpha and theta brain waves, our suggestibility increases dramatically. This is why meditation, hypnosis, and the twilight state between waking and sleeping are such powerful times for change. Dispenza writes, in these relaxed states, the analytical mind steps aside, allowing new information to reach the subconscious mind without the usual filtering and resistance. Dispenza connects this understanding to the placebo effect, explaining that many traditional healing rituals across cultures involve inducing altered states through chanting, rhythmic movement, or ceremonial practices. These traditions intuitively understood what neuroscience is now confirming, he observes. When people enter these receptive brain states, healing suggestions become more effective. The chapter addresses how modern society has created a population that may be highly suggestible to negative outcomes. We are constantly bombarded with messages about disease, aging, and limitation, Dispenza notes. Pharmaceutical advertisements not only suggest that you might have certain conditions, but also plant the expectation of specific side effects. This is nocebo suggestibility at work. Dispenza shares compelling research on how cultural beliefs affect health outcomes. He cites studies showing that Chinese Americans born in years considered inauspicious by Chinese astrology had significantly shorter lifespans than those born in lucky years, but only if they strongly held traditional Chinese beliefs. Your cultural programming, he writes, can literally determine how your genes express themselves. A fascinating section explores how suggestibility changes throughout life. Dispenza explains that children naturally spend more time in theta brainwave states, making them highly suggestible and receptive to programming. By the time we're 35 years old, he writes, 95% of who we are, our beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, emotional reactions, habits, skills, perceptual predispositions, and even our personal preferences, is a set of subconscious programs running automatically. Margaret didn't deny her diagnosis, Dispenza explains, but she refused to accept the suggested limitations that came with it. By repeatedly entering suggestible states and implanting new possibilities, she changed her biology. Dr. Dispenza concludes the chapter with a powerful call to awareness. Every day you are being programmed by your environment, media, relationships, and cultural beliefs. The question is not whether you're suggestible, you are. The question is whether you'll allow this natural capacity to be used unconsciously by external influences, or whether you'll consciously direct it toward creating the life and health you desire. Chapter 6. Attitudes, Beliefs, and Perceptions. In Chapter 6, Dr. Joe Dispenza delves deeply into how our attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions fundamentally shape our reality and health outcomes. This chapter serves as a cornerstone for understanding the psychological architecture that determines our experience of life. Dispenza begins by distinguishing between these three mental constructs. Attitudes, he explains, are collections of thoughts linked to feelings that become memorized in the body. They represent our predispositions toward certain aspects of life. An attitude is essentially a bias, Dispenza writes. It predetermines how you'll perceive and respond to situations before they even occur. Beliefs are defined as thoughts that we've accepted as true. Dispenza emphasizes that beliefs are more firmly entrenched than attitudes and often operate below conscious awareness. Your beliefs create the lens through which you see the world, he explains. They determine what you accept as possible or impossible for yourself and others. Perceptions are how we interpret reality based on our attitudes and beliefs. Your perceptions are not passive recordings of external reality, Dispenza notes. They are active creations shaped by your inner world of attitudes and beliefs, which then reinforce those very attitudes and beliefs. A study where hotel housekeepers who were informed about the exercise benefits of their daily work showed measurable improvements in weight, blood pressure, body fat, and waist-to-hip ratio compared to a control group who performed the same work but weren't given this information. Cases where patients with multiple personalities demonstrate different allergies, vision prescriptions, and even diabetic symptoms depending on which personality is dominant. Research on twins showing that genetic predispositions to disease only manifest under certain belief and lifestyle conditions. Your beliefs about your health are not passive thoughts, Dispenza emphasizes. They are active instructions to your biology. The chapter delves into how limiting beliefs form, often during childhood when we lack the critical thinking skills to question information from authority figures. By age 35, Dispenza notes, most people have developed such rigid beliefs about what's possible for them that they've literally programmed their lives within narrow parameters. Particularly illuminating is Dispenza's explanation of belief hierarchies, how some beliefs are foundational and support numerous secondary beliefs. Changing surface beliefs without addressing the core beliefs that support them rarely produces lasting transformation, he writes. It's like cutting weeds without removing the roots. Dispenza introduces readers to the concept of metacognition, the ability to think about our thinking. Most people think the same thoughts every day without ever examining where those thoughts came from or whether they're actually true, he observes. Metacognition is the essential skill that allows you to step outside your habitual thinking and question your most fundamental assumptions. The chapter offers practical guidance for identifying and changing limiting beliefs. Become aware of recurring thoughts, especially those accompanied by strong emotions. Question the source and validity of these thoughts. Consider what your life would be like without these beliefs. Create replacement beliefs that better serve your well-being. Reinforce new beliefs through mental rehearsal and meditation. Dispenza shares compelling stories of participants in his workshops who transformed chronic health conditions by identifying and changing core beliefs. One participant, Robert, had struggled with chronic back pain for decades. During a meditation exercise, he realized he had internalized his father's belief that life is hard and then you die. This core belief manifested as physical tension and pain. By consciously replacing this belief with life is meant to be joyful and my body is designed to express health, Robert experienced significant relief from his chronic pain. What made Robert's transformation possible wasn't just positive thinking, Dispenza explains. It was his willingness to identify a fundamental belief that had shaped his entire experience of life, question its validity, and then systematically install a new belief through focused attention and elevated emotion. The chapter addresses how cultural beliefs about aging and disease create collective nocebo effects. When an entire culture accepts that certain conditions are inevitable with age, these beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies, Dispenza writes. He contrasts this with cultures where elders remain vibrant and active well into advanced age, suggesting that many natural aspects of aging may actually be culturally programmed beliefs. He leaves readers with a powerful invitation. Examine your beliefs. Question your limitations. Consider that many of your most fundamental assumptions about reality might simply be learned opinions rather than absolute truths. In this space of questioning lies your freedom to create a new experience of health and life. Chapter 7. The Quantum Mind. In Chapter 7, Dr. Joe Dispenza takes readers on a fascinating journey into quantum physics and its profound implications for understanding consciousness, reality, and our power to create change. This chapter represents a significant shift in the book, moving from the biological aspects of the placebo effect to exploring the deeper nature of mind and matter. Dispenza begins by addressing a fundamental limitation of Newtonian physics for explaining consciousness. The classical model of reality describes a deterministic material universe where consciousness is merely a byproduct of brain activity, he writes. But this model can't account for phenomena like placebo effects, spontaneous remissions, or the impact of consciousness on physical systems. The chapter introduces quantum physics as a more comprehensive framework for understanding these mysteries. Quantum physics reveals a very different reality than the one we perceive with our senses, Dispenza explains. At the subatomic level, matter isn't solid at all. It's primarily empty space with energy patterns that only appear solid because of how our brains interpret them. Dispenza explores several key principles of quantum physics and their relevance to consciousness. The observer effect demonstrates that subatomic particles exist as waves of probability until observed, at which point they collapse into specific particles with defined properties. This suggests something revolutionary, Dispenza notes. Consciousness isn't just perceiving reality, it's participating in creating it through observation. Quantum entanglement shows that once particles interact, they remain connected regardless of distance, with changes to one instantly affecting the other. Dispenza relates this to the connectedness of all consciousness. Perhaps our apparent separation is an illusion, and at a fundamental level, we participate in a unified field of consciousness. Quantum superposition reveals that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until measured. Dispenza draws a parallel to human potential. Just as particles exist in all possible states until observed, perhaps we exist in a field of infinite possibilities until our observations, our focus and attention, collapse those possibilities into specific experiences. The chapter delves into fascinating research supporting these concepts, including studies on how meditation affects random number generators and experiments showing that human intention can influence quantum events. These studies suggest that consciousness isn't contained within the brain, Dispenza writes. Rather, the brain may be more like a receiver that processes consciousness, which exists as a field beyond physical matter. Dispenza introduces the concept of the quantum mind, a perspective that views consciousness as a fundamental property of the universe rather than a byproduct of neural activity. If consciousness operates according to quantum principles, he explains, then our thoughts and intentions aren't limited by classical constraints like time and space. This explains phenomena like intuition, synchronicity, and the placebo effect that traditional models can't account for. A particularly illuminating section explores the relationship between the quantum field, consciousness, and emotion. Dispenza explains that emotions serve as the bridge between thought and physical reality. Thoughts are the language of the brain, but feelings are the language of the body, he writes. When you combine clear intention with elevated emotion, you create a coherent signal that interacts with the quantum field more powerfully than intellectual thought alone. Dispenza challenges readers to reconsider the nature of reality itself. What we call reality is not a fixed external world that we are merely observing. It's a dynamic, participatory process that responds to our attention, expectation, and intention. This understanding forms the theoretical foundation for his practical approach to transformation. The chapter addresses common misunderstandings about quantum principles in personal development. This isn't magical thinking, Dispenza emphasizes. It's about understanding the actual mechanisms by which consciousness interacts with physical reality, and then applying that understanding systematically. Dispenza shares remarkable stories from his workshops, where participants created significant life changes by applying these principles. One particularly moving example involves a woman named Catherine, who had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Through daily meditation practices based on quantum principles, she focused intensely on experiencing herself as already healed while generating profound feelings of gratitude and wholeness. Catherine wasn't denying her current reality, Dispenza explains. She was creating a new one by focusing on possibilities rather than limitations. Within 6 months, her symptoms had dramatically improved, and follow-up MRIs showed significant reduction in lesions, changes her doctors couldn't explain through conventional models. The chapter explores the concept of space-time versus the quantum field. Dispenza explains that our normal waking consciousness operates in space-time, where we're bound by linear causality, effects following causes. But in meditation and elevated states of consciousness, he writes, we can access the quantum field where all possibilities exist simultaneously, allowing us to select new potentials and draw them into our experience. Particularly fascinating is Dispenza's explanation of how past, present, and future relate in quantum terms. From a quantum perspective, all possible pasts, presents, and futures exist simultaneously as probabilities, he explains. When you change your energy in the present moment, you're not just affecting your future, you're actually connecting with a different potential past that leads to a different present. Dr. Dispenza concludes the chapter by emphasizing that these quantum principles aren't abstract theory. They're practical tools for transformation. When you understand that you're not a passive observer of reality, but an active creator, he writes, you realize that your consciousness is the most powerful tool you have for healing and change. He leaves readers with a profound invitation. What would happen if you approached each day as a quantum creator rather than a physical body moving through time? What if you recognized that the field of infinite possibilities responds to your attention and intention? What new reality might you call into existence? Chapter 8. 3 Stories of Personal Transformation. In Chapter 8, Dr. Joe Dispenza shares 3 compelling real-life stories that illustrate the principles discussed throughout the book. These narratives serve as powerful testimonials to the potential of becoming one's own placebo. Anna's story. Healing an irreversible genetic condition. The chapter begins with Anna, a woman in her 60s diagnosed with progressive cerebellar ataxia, a genetic neurological condition that doctors insisted was irreversible. Her symptoms had progressed to the point where she struggled to walk without assistance, experienced severe tremors, and had difficulty speaking clearly. Anna's neurologist had told her explicitly that her condition would only worsen, Dispenza writes. He explained that the neurons in her cerebellum were dying and that no treatment could reverse this process. Rather than accepting this prognosis, Anna began attending Dispenza's workshops and committed herself to daily meditation practices. "I decided that if my body could break down because of genetic instructions," Anna told Dispenza, "then perhaps it could also heal with new instructions." Dispenza describes Anna's approach. She stopped identifying with her past self and immersed herself completely in the present moment during meditation. Instead of focusing on what wasn't working in her body, she put all her attention on how it would feel to be whole and balanced. After 8 months of dedicated practice, Anna experienced remarkable improvements. Her tremors diminished significantly, her speech became clearer, and she regained her ability to walk unassisted. When she returned to her neurologist, he was astonished by her improvement and admitted he had no medical explanation for it. "What makes Anna's case so significant," Dispenza explains, "is that, according to conventional genetics, her condition should have been irreversible. Her improvement suggests that through focused consciousness, she somehow affected the expression of her genes, a concept that aligns with emerging research in epigenetics." John's story, overcoming depression without medication. The second story features John, a successful business executive who had struggled with severe depression for over a decade. Despite trying numerous medications and therapy approaches, his condition had steadily worsened to the point where he could barely function in daily life. John had been told repeatedly that his depression was caused by a chemical imbalance that required lifelong medication. Dispenza writes, "His identity had become so intertwined with his diagnosis that he couldn't imagine himself without depression." At his wife's urging, John reluctantly attended one of Dispenza's retreats. Initially skeptical, he nonetheless committed to the meditation practices and conceptual framework presented. Dispenza explains that John's breakthrough came when he realized how his thought patterns were literally creating his brain chemistry. During one meditation, John had a profound insight, Dispenza recounts. He realized that he had been unconsciously rehearsing traumatic memories from his past every day, repeatedly triggering stress chemicals that maintained his depressed state. John developed a systematic approach to changing his internal state. Each morning, he spent time in meditation, consciously generating feelings of gratitude and possibility. Throughout the day, he caught himself when falling into old thought patterns and deliberately shifted his focus to different possibilities. Within 6 weeks, John noticed significant changes in his mood, energy, and outlook, Dispenza writes. By 3 months, his depression had lifted to such a degree that with his doctor's supervision, he began reducing his medication. Within a year, he was medication-free and experiencing a level of well-being he hadn't known in decades. Dispenza emphasizes that John's improvement didn't come from positive thinking or denying his feelings. John's transformation came through understanding how his brain and body were responding to his thought patterns and then systematically changing those patterns through sustained attention and practice. Maria's story, reversing advanced breast cancer. Perhaps the most remarkable narrative involves Maria, a woman in her 50s diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer that had metastasized to her lungs, liver, and lymphatic system. After her diagnosis, doctors recommended immediate aggressive treatment, but warned her that her prognosis was poor. Maria had watched her mother die from the same type of cancer, despite undergoing grueling treatments, Dispenza writes. She decided that regardless of how much time she had left, she wanted to understand the mental and emotional patterns that might have contributed to her condition. Maria began studying research on psychology and cancer, discovering literature suggesting connections between certain personality traits, stress responses, and cancer development. She attended Dispenza's advanced workshop with the intention not just of healing her body, but of completely transforming her relationship with herself. Maria realized that she had spent her entire life caring for others while suppressing her own needs. Dispenza explains. She had internalized a belief that her worth came from sacrifice and service, which led to constant internal stress and resentment that she wouldn't allow herself to acknowledge. During intensive meditation retreats, Maria focused on releasing these patterns and connecting with a new sense of self-worth and possibility. Rather than fighting against cancer or forcing herself to be positive, Dispenza notes, Maria worked on changing the internal conditions that she believed had allowed cancer to develop in the first place. Dispenza describes Maria's methodical approach. Each day, she spent hours in meditation, dismantling her old identity and emotions. She practiced generating and sustaining elevated emotions like gratitude, joy, and self-compassion. She visualized her immune system functioning optimally and her body returning to perfect health. After 7 months of this practice, Maria returned to her oncologist for follow-up scans. To her doctor's astonishment, the tumors had shrunk significantly. 3 months later, additional scans showed no detectable cancer in her body. Maria's oncologist called it a spontaneous remission, a term medicine uses when healing occurs without medical intervention. Dispenza writes, but there was nothing spontaneous about it. Maria had worked consistently and systematically to change her internal state, and her body responded accordingly. Dispenza concludes the chapter by emphasizing what these 3 stories have in common. None of these individuals achieved healing through wishful thinking or denial of their conditions. Each underwent a profound internal transformation that required consistent effort, focused attention, and a willingness to examine and change deeply held beliefs and emotional patterns. He notes that while these results may seem extraordinary, they illustrate principles that are available to everyone. These aren't miracle cases, Dispenza writes. They're examples of what's possible when people apply their understanding of how consciousness affects biology in a systematic and sustained way. They became their own placebos by changing their thoughts, perceptions, and emotional states, thereby changing their bodies. Chapter 9. Meditation, the Quantum Field, and Your Supernatural Abilities. In this profound chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza explores the transformative power of meditation as a gateway to accessing the quantum field and developing what he terms supernatural abilities. capacities that transcend our conventional understanding of human potential. Dispenza begins by addressing a common misconception about meditation. Many people think meditation is only about relaxation or stress reduction, he writes. While these are valuable benefits, they're just the beginning. Properly understood, meditation is a technology for changing consciousness and accessing deeper levels of mind and reality. Alpha waves, 813 Hz, emerge when we close our eyes and turn our attention inward. Alpha is the gateway to the subconscious, Dispenza explains. In this relaxed, reflective state, we begin to access creativity and intuition beyond analytical thinking. Theta waves, 4-8 Hz, represent an even deeper state where the barrier between conscious and subconscious mind becomes highly permeable. In theta, Dispenza writes, we gain access to long-term memories, repressed experiences, and profound insights. Almost all significant healing in meditation occurs in theta state. Delta waves, 0.544, are usually associated with deep sleep, but Dispenza explains that advanced meditators can remain conscious in delta. When you're aware in delta, you access what mystics have called the field or source, a dimension beyond space and time, where information and energy exist in potential before manifesting in physical reality. Gamma waves, above 40 Hz, represent a state of heightened awareness and whole-brain synchronization. Gamma state is associated with moments of peak experience, creative breakthrough, and spiritual insight, Dispenza notes. Long-term meditators demonstrate increased gamma activity even outside of meditation. The chapter explores research showing how meditation alters brain function and structure. What we're discovering through neuroimaging, Dispenza writes, is that long-term meditation practice literally reshapes the brain, increasing density in areas associated with attention, sensory processing, and self-awareness, while reducing activity in the default mode network responsible for mind-wandering and self-referential thinking. Dispenza introduces the concept of coherence, the synchronized functioning of different bodily systems. When your thoughts, emotions, and physiological systems are in alignment, he explains, you create a coherent field that enhances communication between all parts of yourself and between yourself and the quantum field. Particularly fascinating is Dispenza's explanation of heart-brain coherence. He cites research from the HeartMath Institute showing that the heart generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than the brain's field. When you generate elevated emotions like gratitude, compassion, or joy, he writes, your heart produces a coherent rhythm that entrains brain function, enhances immune response, and creates a measurable field extending several feet beyond your body. The chapter delves into specific meditation approaches for accessing the quantum field. Becoming nobody. Dispenza emphasizes the importance of temporarily releasing identification with your personal history, problems, and identity. As long as you remain identified with your known self, he explains, you're bound to create more of the same reality. Quantum possibilities emerge when you step beyond your memorized self. Entering the quantum field, Dispenza guides readers through the process of shifting awareness beyond space and time. When you move beyond the senses and your association with everything familiar in three-dimensional reality, he writes, you begin to connect with the field of all possibilities. The chapter addresses what Dispenza calls supernatural abilities that can emerge through consistent practice. Heightened intuition and access to information beyond rational knowledge, accelerated healing and regeneration of bodily tissues, synchronicities and meaningful coincidences that align with intentions, enhanced creativity and problem-solving capabilities, expanded perception beyond the conventional five senses, profound states of unity, consciousness, and connection with all life. Dispenza shares remarkable stories from his advanced workshops where participants have demonstrated these capacities. One particularly striking account involves a woman who, during a walking meditation, spontaneously accessed information about a stranger's medical condition and personal history, details she could not possibly have known through conventional means, which were later verified as accurate. Dr. Dispenza concludes with practical guidance for establishing a consistent meditation practice, being your familiar self and opening to greater possibilities. He leaves readers with a powerful invitation. Meditation is not an escape from life, but a deeper engagement emphasizing that regularity is more important than duration, especially at first. Begin where you are, he advises, even if that means just 5 minutes daily. What matters is breaking the habit of with its true nature. Through this practice, you're not just changing your thoughts, you're changing the very observer who has those thoughts. And when the observer changes, everything the observer observes changes too. Chapter 10. Information and Energy, the Elements of Transformation. In this pivotal chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza synthesizes the concepts presented throughout the book into a comprehensive framework for personal transformation, focusing on the twin elements of information and energy. Dispenza begins by explaining why information alone is often insufficient for creating lasting change. Many people understand intellectually what they need to do to improve their lives or health, he writes. But knowledge without application doesn't produce transformation. Information must be combined with energy to become embodied wisdom that changes your state of being. Energy is the emotional and vital force that animates information and brings it to life. Energy is what makes information more than just an intellectual concept, Dispenza writes. When you combine clear intention with elevated emotion, you create a coherent signal that affects your biology and your relationship with the quantum field. Dispenza introduces the concept of energy centers, often called chakras in Eastern traditions, as organizational systems for different types of energy in the body. He explains how these centers correlate with specific glands in the endocrine system, emotions, and aspects of consciousness. Each center processes energy related to different aspects of life, he explains. When energy is blocked or depleted in these centers due to stress, trauma, or limiting beliefs, it affects both your emotional state and your physical health. Conversely, when energy flows freely through these centers, it supports healing and coherent functioning, from survival to growth and regeneration. You create a cascade of beneficial hormones and neurotransmitters that signal the body to mow. A particularly illuminating section addresses how information becomes embodied through repetition and emotional association. For new information to change you, Dispenza explains, it must move from intellectual understanding to emotional acceptance to physical embodiment. This process requires sustained attention and elevated energy. The chapter outlines Dispenza's systematic approach to transformation, which he describes as becoming greater than your environment, your body, and time. The chapter outlines Dispenza's systematic approach to transformation, which he describes as becoming greater than your environment, your body, and time. Environmental triggers can automatically activate old neural networks and emotional responses. Your brain associates specific people, places, and situations with particular states of being, Dispenza notes. Developing metacognition, awareness of these triggers and your responses, allows you to interrupt automatic reactions and choose new responses. Inconsistent practice dilutes the power of transformation. Neuroplasticity and epigenetic change require repeated signals over time, Dispenza emphasizes. Occasional efforts, no matter how intense, won't create lasting change. Consistency is more important than duration or intensity, especially at first. The chapter includes practical exercises for working with information and energy. A guided process for blessing the energy centers to release blocked energy and redirect it toward healing and creation. David's transformation wasn't miraculous or instantaneous. About how he wanted his body to function with the elevated emotional energy of gratitude for that function, even before he experienced it physically. Dr. Dispenza concludes the chapter by emphasizing that becoming your own placebo isn't about forcing change through willpower or positive thinking. True transformation, he writes, comes from changing your state of being through the coherent application of information and energy. When you change your energy, you change your life. He leaves readers with a powerful insight. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. When you combine the right information with the right energy, you don't have to pursue or chase after what you desire. You simply become it, and reality reconfigures around your new state of being. Chapter 11. 3 more stories of personal transformation. In this captivating chapter, Dr. Joe Dispenza shares 3 additional stories of remarkable healing and transformation, each illustrating different aspects of becoming one's own placebo. The chapter begins with Bonnie, a woman in her 40s who had suffered from severe anxiety and panic attacks for over 15 years. Her condition had progressively worsened to the point where she rarely left her home, had to quit her job, and was taking multiple medications with significant side effects. Bonnie's life had become increasingly smaller, Dispenza writes. She'd tried various therapies and medications, but the underlying anxiety remained, ready to flare into full panic with the slightest trigger. Bonnie's transformation began when she attended one of Dispenza's workshops, initially requiring her husband to accompany her due to her fear of public spaces. During the workshop, she gained a new understanding of how her thought patterns were creating her experience. A critical breakthrough came when Bonnie recognized that her body had become addicted to the stress chemicals produced by anxiety. She understood that the uncomfortable sensations she felt when trying to change weren't signs of failure, Dispenza writes, but evidence that her body was withdrawing from its chemical dependency on stress hormones. Over 6 months of consistent practice, Bonnie gradually rebuilt her life. She began by taking short walks outside her home, then expanded to brief shopping trips, and eventually returned to social activities. With her doctor's guidance, she slowly reduced her medication as her symptoms improved. 2 years after first learning these principles, Dispenza notes, Bonnie was medication-free, working full-time again, and enjoying activities that had been impossible during her years of anxiety. She still experienced occasional anxious thoughts, but they no longer controlled her or escalated into panic. Dispenza emphasizes a key insight from Bonnie's story. Her healing didn't come from fighting against anxiety or forcing herself to be calm. It came from understanding the mechanics of how her thoughts created her biological state, and then systematically changing those thoughts through consistent practice. Michael's story, reversing chronic fatigue and autoimmune disease. The second narrative features Michael, a former athlete and business executive who had been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and an autoimmune condition that caused widespread inflammation and joint pain. After years of declining health, despite trying numerous treatments, Michael had resigned himself to a life of limitation. Dispenza describes how Michael's healing journey centered on developing a completely new relationship with his body. Rather than viewing his body as a machine that had failed him, he began relating to it as an intelligent system that was doing its best to maintain balance under challenging conditions. Michael's daily practice combined specific visualization techniques with generating emotions of gratitude and appreciation for his body. Instead of focusing on what wasn't working, Dispenza writes, Michael spent time each day feeling thankful for the aspects of his health that were functioning well and imagining energy flowing freely through all his systems. A key component of Michael's transformation was his work with beliefs around vulnerability and rest. In Michael's achievement-oriented mindset, Needing rest had been equated with weakness, Dispenza notes. He had to consciously challenge this belief, recognizing that rest and recovery are essential aspects of health and performance. After approximately 9 months of consistent practice, Michael experienced significant improvements in his energy, inflammation levels, and overall well-being. Within 18 months, his symptoms had resolved to the point where his doctors no longer considered him to have active disease. What made Michael's case particularly interesting, Dispenza observes, was that his healing didn't just involve overcoming disease. It required him to develop a fundamentally different relationship with his entire life. His health challenges had been feedback about an unsustainable approach to living, and his healing emerged when he aligned with more balanced ways of being. Geraldine's story, Healing from Traumatic Brain Injury. The third story focuses on Geraldine, a woman in her 60s who had suffered a traumatic brain injury in a serious car accident. 3 years after the accident, she continued to experience severe cognitive difficulties, memory problems, persistent headaches, and fatigue that significantly impacted her quality of life. Geraldine's neurologists had told her that most healing from brain injuries occurs within the first 2 years, Dispenza writes. Since she was already past that window, they suggested she focus on adapting to her limitations rather than expecting significant improvement. Refusing to accept this prognosis, Geraldine began exploring neurofeedback and meditation techniques, eventually finding her way to Dispenza's work. Despite her cognitive challenges, she committed to learning and applying the principles of neuroplasticity and mind-body healing. What made Geraldine's situation particularly challenging, Dispenza explains, was that the very organ she was trying to heal, her brain, was the one she needed to use for the healing work. It was like trying to repair a computer using that same computer. Dispenza describes Geraldine's creative approach to this challenge. She recorded simple guided meditations for herself, breaking down complex concepts into manageable steps. When her cognitive fatigue made sustained attention difficult, she did shorter sessions more frequently throughout the day. A significant breakthrough came when Geraldine began working with the concept of coherence between heart and brain. By focusing on generating feelings of gratitude and appreciation, Dispenza writes, Geraldine was able to produce coherent heart rhythms that helped organize and integrate brain function. Geraldine also worked extensively with releasing the emotional trauma stored from the accident. Through specialized meditation techniques, Dispenza explains, she was able to access and release the emotions and stress that had become locked in her body and nervous system at the time of the trauma. Over the course of about 14 months, Geraldine experienced remarkable improvements in her cognitive function, memory, and energy levels. Her persistent headaches gradually diminished, and she regained her ability to read, write, and engage in complex conversations without fatigue. When Geraldine returned to her neurologist after 18 months of this work, Dispenza notes, brain scans showed increased connectivity between previously damaged areas. Her doctor was so impressed by her improvement that he asked to learn more about the methods she had used. Dispenza emphasizes that Geraldine's approach combined conventional rehabilitation with consciousness-based practices. She didn't reject medical treatment. She complemented it with techniques that addressed aspects of healing that her traditional therapy didn't cover, particularly the emotional and energetic dimensions of trauma. Common themes in transformation. Dr. Dispenza concludes the chapter by highlighting several common elements across these diverse healing journeys. Each person moved beyond their diagnosis to focus on creating health rather than fighting disease. When you identify strongly with a diagnosis, Dispenza writes, you tend to imagine a future based on statistical probabilities and medical expectations. These individuals chose instead to focus on possibilities beyond conventional prognoses. They all developed a regular practice rather than seeking quick fixes. Transformation isn't an event, it's a process, Dispenza emphasizes. Each of these individuals committed to daily practices that gradually shifted their biology and consciousness. All three worked with both information, understanding, and energy, emotion. Intellectual understanding alone didn't create their healing, Dispenza notes. They combined clear intentions with elevated emotional states to signal new genetic expression and neurological organization. Each person took full responsibility for their internal state, regardless of external circumstances. Rather than waiting for something outside themselves to change, Dispenza writes, they focused on changing their internal environment first, recognizing that the body would respond accordingly. Dr. Dispenza concludes with a powerful observation. These stories aren't extraordinary because the individuals possessed special abilities that others don't have. They're extraordinary because these people applied universal principles with exceptional commitment and consistency. Their experiences demonstrate what's possible when we fully engage with our capacity to be our own placebos. Chapter 12. Becoming Supernatural. In the final chapter of Are the Placebo, Dr. Joe Dispenza expands the discussion beyond healing physical ailments to explore the broader implications of becoming one's own placebo, what he describes as becoming supernatural. Dispenza begins by clarifying what he means by this provocative term. Becoming supernatural doesn't mean developing paranormal powers or transcending human nature, he writes. It means living from the understanding that what we call natural is simply what we've become accustomed to. When we step beyond those accustomed limitations, we access capacities that seem supernatural only in comparison to our conditioned baseline. The chapter explores how the principles that enable healing through the placebo effect can be applied to transform every aspect of life. The same process that allows you to heal a physical condition can be used to create new opportunities, relationships, and experiences, Dispenza explains. In both cases, you're using consciousness to affect reality. Dispenza introduces the concept of breaking the habit of being yourself, moving beyond the personality that has been shaped by past experiences and limiting beliefs. Your personality creates your personal reality, he writes. If you want a new reality, you must become someone new. This transformation, Dispenza explains, involves several key elements. Transcending the environment means developing the ability to maintain your internal state, regardless of external triggers. Most people's thoughts and emotions are reactions to their surroundings, Dispenza notes. True empowerment comes from choosing your state independent of circumstance. Transcending the body involves breaking free from the biological habits that keep you anchored to the past. Your body has become accustomed to certain emotional states and their corresponding chemical signatures, Dispenza explains. Transformation requires interrupting these patterns and establishing new baselines of being. Transcending time means shifting from living based on memories of the past or anticipation of the future to fully inhabiting the present moment. All possibility exists in the now, Dispenza writes. When you bring your energy fully into the present, you access quantum potentials beyond linear causality. The chapter explores how these principles create tangible effects in daily life. Dispenza shares numerous examples from workshop participants who experienced synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and profound shifts in their external circumstances after changing their internal states. One particularly striking story involves a woman named Rebecca, who had struggled financially for years despite working multiple jobs. Through consistent meditation practice focused on embodying the feelings of abundance and gratitude, she began experiencing a series of unexpected opportunities and resources. Rebecca didn't directly pursue these opportunities, Dispenza notes. They emerged naturally as her internal state shifted from scarcity to abundance. Dispenza addresses potential skepticism about these outcomes. Are these results mere coincidences? From a conventional perspective, perhaps, but when you understand how consciousness interacts with the quantum field, you recognize that what we call coincidence is often the natural manifestation of coherent intention and elevated emotion. A fascinating section explores the relationship between individual and collective transformation. As more people raise their consciousness beyond survival emotions like fear, anger, and competition, Dispenza writes, they contribute to a field effect that makes elevated states more accessible to everyone. He cites research on the Maharishi effect, where groups meditating together created measurable reductions in crime rates and violent events in surrounding areas. These studies suggest that consciousness isn't contained within individual brains, Dispenza explains. It's a field that we all participate in and contribute to. The chapter includes guidance for applying these principles in everyday life. Begin and end each day in elevated consciousness, rather than immediately engaging with external demands and distractions. Notice when you're being triggered by the environment and use that awareness as an opportunity to choose a different response. Practice gratitude for future possibilities as if they've already occurred, combining clear intention with elevated emotion. Pay attention to synchronicities and unexpected opportunities that align with your intentions. Take inspired action when it arises, rather than forcing outcomes through willpower alone. Dispenza addresses common obstacles to this approach, acknowledging that living supernaturally requires going against cultural conditioning that emphasizes external causes and material explanations. You may find that as you change, some relationships and situations no longer resonate with your new state of being, he notes. This is a natural part of transformation, not a reason to revert to old patterns. The chapter concludes with a powerful invitation to readers to recognize their true nature beyond limiting beliefs and conditioning. The most supernatural thing you can do, Dispenza writes, is to be truly present, fully conscious, and completely aligned with your highest potential in each moment. Dr. Dispenza's final message is both challenging and inspiring. Becoming your own placebo isn't just about healing. It's about claiming your power as a creator of your experience. The question isn't whether you can transcend your current limitations. The question is, will you choose to remember and embody the truth of who you really are? He concludes with words that capture the essence of the entire book. You are not a biological robot driven by genes and circumstances. You are a supernatural being with the innate capacity to change your biology through thought alone and create a life that reflects your highest vision. This isn't metaphysical speculation. It's the frontiers of science meeting the deepest wisdom of human experience. The invitation is clear. Will you accept the extraordinary possibility of becoming supernatural in your ordinary life? Epilogue. Making a new mind for a new future. In the epilogue of Are the Placebo, Dr. Joe Dispenza provides a concise synthesis of the book's key principles and offers practical guidance for readers to implement these ideas in their daily lives. Dispenza begins by reflecting on the journey covered throughout the book. We've explored how thoughts become biology, how beliefs shape physical reality, and how conscious intention combined with elevated emotion can create remarkable transformations in health and life. Now the question becomes, how will you apply these understandings to create your new future? He emphasizes that the book's teachings aren't meant to be intellectual curiosities, but practical tools for transformation. Knowledge is power, Dispenza writes, but only when it's applied. The true measure of understanding is change in your biology, your health, your relationships, and your life experience. The epilogue outlines a simple but powerful daily practice for becoming your own placebo. Morning meditation. Begin each day with focused attention on your intended state of being rather than immediately engaging with external demands. The first hour of your day sets the tone for your mental and emotional state, Dispenza explains. Use this time to program your consciousness rather than letting it be programmed by habit or circumstance. Conscious awareness. Throughout the day, regularly check your thoughts and emotional state, particularly noticing when you fall into old patterns. Becoming aware that you're unaware is the beginning of change, Dispenza notes. Each moment of recognition is an opportunity to choose differently. Evening review and intention setting. Before sleep, review your day with awareness but without judgment, acknowledging moments of both conscious choice and unconscious reaction. Then set clear intentions for your desired state upon waking. The transition to sleep is a powerful time for programming your subconscious, Dispenza writes. The epilogue addresses common challenges in implementing these practices, acknowledging that change isn't always comfortable or linear. There will be days when you feel like you're making no progress or even moving backward, Dispenza acknowledges. This is normal and part of the process. The key is persistence through these periods of recalibration. Dispenza emphasizes the importance of community and support in transformation. While this work is deeply personal, it doesn't have to be solitary, he writes. Finding others who share your commitment to conscious evolution can provide encouragement during challenging phases and celebration during breakthroughs. A particularly powerful section discusses the relationship between personal transformation and global change. As you change your own consciousness, you contribute to the evolution of our collective experience, Dispenza explains. Every person who moves beyond limiting beliefs and survival emotions raises the baseline of what's possible for humanity. Dispenza addresses those who may feel skeptical about these possibilities. Skepticism is healthy. It prevents blind acceptance without evidence. But true skepticism remains open to possibility, rather than closed in certainty. I invite you to approach these principles with the mind of a scientist. Form hypotheses about what might be possible in your own life, test them through consistent practice, and evaluate the results with honest awareness. The epilogue concludes with a vision of what's possible when we fully engage with our capacity to be our own placebos. Imagine a world where people understand that many limitations they've accepted as fixed are actually fluid and responsive to consciousness. Imagine communities where healing and transformation are recognized as natural expressions of our human potential rather than rare exceptions. Dr. Dispenza's final words encapsulate the essence of becoming your own placebo. You have within you the capacity to heal, to create, and to transcend limitations that once seemed insurmountable. This capacity isn't magical thinking. It's the frontier of what science is revealing about the relationship between consciousness and reality. The future of medicine, the future of human potential, and your personal future are all connected to this fundamental understanding. You are the placebo that can transform your life. Conclusion: the gift of transformation. Dr. Joe Dispenza's You Are the Placebo offers a revolutionary perspective on human potential, blending cutting-edge science with practical wisdom, to demonstrate how our thoughts and beliefs literally shape our biology and our lives. Throughout this comprehensive exploration, Dispenza has guided readers through the mechanics of the placebo effect, the neurological and quantum foundations of mind-body healing, and compelling stories of individuals who have transformed seemingly irreversible conditions through the power of their consciousness. The core message of the book is both simple and profound. We have far more control over our health and our reality than conventional perspectives suggest. By understanding how our thoughts become our biology, we gain access to perhaps the most powerful healing tool available, our own consciousness. Dispenza's approach isn't about denying the value of conventional medicine or suggesting that healing is merely a matter of positive thinking. Instead, he offers a complementary perspective that recognizes the complex interplay between mind and matter, demonstrating how consciousness can work alongside other healing modalities to create transformation that might otherwise seem impossible. Communities where healing and transformation are recognized as natural expressions of our human potential rather than rare exceptions. Dr. Dispenza's final words encapsulate the essence of becoming your own placebo. You have within you the capacity to heal, to create, and to transcend limitations that once seemed insurmountable. This capacity isn't magical thinking. It's the frontier of what science is revealing about the relationship between consciousness and reality. The future of medicine, the future of human potential, and your personal future are all connected to this fundamental understanding. You are the placebo that can transform your life. Conclusion: the gift of transformation. Dr. Joe Dispenza's You Are the Placebo offers a revolutionary perspective on human potential, blending cutting-edge science with practical wisdom to demonstrate how our thoughts and beliefs literally shape our biology and our lives. Throughout this comprehensive exploration, Dispenza has guided readers through the mechanics of the placebo effect, the neurological and quantum foundations of mind-body healing, and compelling stories of individuals who have transformed seemingly irreversible conditions through the power of their consciousness. The core message of the book is both simple and profound. We have far more control over our health and our reality than conventional perspectives suggest. By understanding how our thoughts become our biology, we gain access to perhaps the most powerful healing tool available, our own consciousness. Dispenza's approach isn't about denying the value of conventional medicine or suggesting that healing is merely a matter of positive thinking. Instead, he offers a complementary perspective that recognizes the complex interplay between mind and matter, demonstrating how consciousness can work alongside other healing modalities to create transformation that might otherwise seem impossible. What sets this book apart is its balance between theoretical understanding and practical application. Dispenza not only explains why the placebo effect works, but provides detailed guidance for becoming your own placebo, creating real physiological change through focused intention, elevated emotion, and consistent practice. The implications of this work extend far beyond healing physical ailments. The same principles that allow the mind to affect the body can be applied to transforming relationships, circumstances, and our overall experience of life. In this sense, You Are the Placebo isn't just about health. It's about recognizing and accessing our inherent capacity to shape our reality from the inside out. As Dr. Dispenza eloquently states in the book's final pages, The placebo effect isn't an illusion or a trick. It's evidence of our remarkable human capacity to move beyond limiting beliefs and access greater possibilities. When you become your own placebo, you're not fooling yourself. You're awakening to the truth of what you can be. This summary has offered a comprehensive overview of Dr. Dispenza's groundbreaking work. But the true value lies in applying these principles in your own life. Through consistent practice and open-minded exploration, you too can discover what it means to become your own placebo and access the extraordinary healing and transformative potential that resides within you. Thank you for joining us in exploring You Are the Placebo. We hope this summary has shed light on the incredible power of your beliefs and thoughts. Remember, your journey towards healing and transformation starts within. Don't forget to share this summary with others, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more enlightening content from Unbound Library.